All right. Good morning, and thank you for tuning in today on behalf of the entire Active Transportation program team and the Active Transportation Resource team at Caltrans, the California Department of Public Health, and the California Transportation Commission. I want to welcome everyone for joining us today for this very important webinar, which we are calling the 2025 Active Transportation Program Cycle 7 Submittable Application Webinar. My name is Victoria Custodio, and along with my colleague Alicia Ramos, we'll be the host for the tech hosts for today's webinar. Okay, so we have a wonderful webinar and presentations planned for you with our two main speakers. But before we begin, I just want to go through a few logistics so that everyone knows that we are able to encourage participation, and also to know that this will be recorded and posted to our Active Transportation Resource Center webinar site. So let's see, I don't have to actually change my slides for this, but first off, I just want to let everyone know that we do encourage participation on this webinar, and we ask that you share your questions throughout the meeting by using the Q&A function, which you can get on the bar below. And it looks like we are also going to enable the chat so we can message everyone and not just the host and panelists throughout the webinar. And then, yes, as I mentioned earlier, the webinar will be recorded and shared with all registered participants. All righty, so our logistics are minimal today. We're really here to learn. As folks know, the purpose of our webinar this morning is to really learn about the new grant application process for the Active Transportation Program. In an effort to streamline the application experience, ATP has transitioned from the traditional PDF format to Submittable, which is an online platform used to facilitate the submission and management of applications. So this webinar has been designed to guide local agencies through the intricacies of using Submittable for the upcoming or for the now announced Cycle 7 call for projects, and we'll use today to learn essential information, gain insights, and ask questions of the CTC staff to ensure a smooth and successful application submission to via Submittable. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to our featured presenters, Beverly Newman-Burkhart and also Alika Changizi, who are both the wonderful staff at the Active Transportation Program at the California Transportation Commission. So thank you, Beverly. Take it away, please.
Thanks, Victoria. Good morning, everyone. So as Victoria mentioned today, really, we just want to give everyone a walkthrough of what Submittable looks like. Hopefully some of you have had a chance to kind of look through it already. It's okay if you haven't, though. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about kind of where actually, if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so these are the things we'll talk about today. So we'll talk about creating an account, navigating the application portal, navigating the application form, managing your submissions, and then the support, so like tech support, and then also if you have questions about kind of application content. And then we'll finish up with some general reminders and tips. And then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. Some of your questions, if you guys can type questions into the Q&A as I go along. Some of them I might be answering like later on in the presentation, so I might like hold off on them, but we'll just, as things come up, I'll let everyone know what's kind of going on. Okay, so sorry, someone's asking when the final guidelines will be posted. So the final guidelines will be posted on our website this week, but the version that the commission approved, so the version that's kind of linked from the book item, is the final version. It just doesn't have like the the approval date on it. So if you need to look at the guidelines, you can look at the version linked from the March Commission meeting. And they're also linked from the application portal. So they're available online right now, and then we'll have the version with like the approval date posted this week. Okay, so next slide, please. All right, so creating an account. If you could go to the next slide. Okay, so that URL at the top of the slide is kind of our page on Submittable. It is linked from the guidelines. It's also linked from the Caltrans Cycle 7 website, and that link will also be up on the CTC website shortly. And you can also use like the link from the slide. You can type it in, and these slides will be posted afterwards, so you can use it there. So using that link will take you to the Submittable platform where you'll find all the applications and all the resources you need. So in order to create an account, when you go to this website, you'll see at the very top of the page, it says view your submissions, and then go to the next slide, please. And then it'll take you to, when you click on that, it'll take you to a little like login page where you can either sign up or you can sign into an existing account. So signing up is pretty straightforward. If you have an existing account, so if you've ever used Submittable for any other application with your organization for like a different grant program through a different agency, you can use that account here. You don't need a new account. So, you know, if there's like another state agency that had an opportunity that you applied for, you can go ahead and log in using that account. It's pretty straightforward. It's like a general sign up process. And then they'll ask you a few questions to kind of populate your like profile, but not many. Okay, so you can go to the next slide, please. I am going to see.
Beverly, would it be helpful if I read the questions out to you so you don't have to jump between screens?
Yeah.
Okay. So we got one question asking, do we need to create an account with Submittable if we do not have an existing one?
Yes, so you have to have an account in order to submit an application.
Great. And then we have another question that came in. I don't know if you want to hold off on this one, but Trevor is asking, is it possible to prepare multiple applications in the same account for the same category?
So that's a good question, Trevor. So you can only prepare for the same application type, you can only prepare on your account one at a time. You'll be able, once you submit it, you'll be able to start another one. However, if you want to work on them simultaneously, then we recommend using the collaboration feature, which we'll talk about later in the presentation. So you'll be able to collaborate with other people at your agency. So basically, you'll be able to work on multiple applications at once, and then one person would have like one of the applications on their account, and then you can share them with that person and like work on them at the same time, and they'll be organized like in the platform to show you like which one is which.
We got another question similar to that, so I'll wait until you get to the collaboration slide.
Yeah, we have someone's asking about collaboration, and we have a slide on that, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, I think those are all the questions.
Yep.
I muted myself. Great. Next slide, please. So we'll talk about navigating the application portal. So this is kind of the top of the application portal. There are, at the very top, there's a few different things. So if you press the home button, it will actually take you to the CTC's ATP website, which will have a link back to this page in case in case you accidentally hit that and don't want to, and you're trying to figure out where you are, you'll be able to link back to this page. And then there's like a little, your name will be in the corner. And right now you can see it's my name, and you'll have like it says my profile, my settings, sitemap, and log out. So that if you go to your profile, you can edit that. But the sitemap is kind of where, if you click on that, it'll come up with a menu that'll help you like find your applications that are in progress and your applications that have been submitted. So that's kind of where you go to kind of access everything that you have in progress. Next slide, please. Okay, so on like the home page for the application portal, there's tons of resources. We're still adding some. You'll see some say coming soon. So we have the scoring rubrics up there. We have some kind of supplemental guidance documents. All of the application attachment templates are here, so you can download those either here or a lot of this stuff is actually linked throughout the application as well. So when you kind of get to where you need to attach the signature page, you'll be able to download it there as well. But you could save it from this page, whatever you prefer. But yeah, most of this will be accessible from inside the application as well. Okay, and there's a couple resources on there that say coming soon, that should be posted either this week or early next week. A couple that I want to point out is the 2025 ATP application checklist. So this checklist is kind of just a checklist of different data sources and kind of attachments that you'll need as you develop your application, really to just help you kind of, as you're putting together your application, to prepare for everything the application is asking you for. So, like where you should get your disadvantaged community data, or, make sure you have this attachment ready to go as you're filling out your application. And then there's also the 2025 ATP Disadvantaged Community Identifier Comparison Workbook. So this is a new tool that we've developed that has kind of all of the disadvantaged community identifiers side by side. And so you can input all of your disadvantaged community information and kind of get a comparison of like what tool works best for your community, like which tool is really showing the kinds of burdens that your community is facing. So that should be posted soon, either later this week or early next week. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you scroll down, you'll see that there's lots of different application types. So it's a little bit different. Our old PDF application, you'd really just start one application and then you would, select what type it was, and then it would populate the questions. For this, you need to select the appropriate application type for your project. We tried to make this as mistake-proof as possible. So there's a few different, like each one, if you click down on the little guidelines arrow, it'll tell you like what the application is for. So everything is based on total project cost, not ATP request. So make sure, if you're doing a large application, it's if your total project cost is $10 million or more. And there's a section on the website that tells you what dollar amount for each type. And it's also in the guidelines section of each application. So just be really careful. But when we get to the next slide in a minute, there's another way that we make sure that you're doing the right application. So in order to start an application, all you need to do is press that submit button, and that will take you to the kind of screening form that I was just talking about. So next slide, please. Okay, next slide. I'll go through this, and then it looks like there might be some more questions. So each application has a screening form that you have to fill out to make sure that you're using the right application. So make sure when you're filling out these screening questions, you're actually really reading them. Because we really don't want someone to fill out the wrong application, just because we'll have to ask you to, either it will be ineligible, or if you submit early enough, we'd have to ask you to like transfer it to a different application. So make sure you're reading these questions. They're all a little bit different depending on which application you're filling out. And then next slide. So if you are using the wrong application type based on how you answer the questions, you'll get this little message here that says, like, check the guidelines. If you get this and you still are like unsure which one you should be using, please, please, please reach out to us. We're really happy to help you like figure out what you should be using. And if you're using the correct application type, you'll kind of be brought to the main application form. If you do this and you say that, and it says that it's the wrong application type and to check, and then you go back and check and you realize that you filled this out incorrectly, like it was actually the right one, and you like clicked the wrong answers. Later on, we'll go through like where you manage your submissions. What you'll have to do is you'll have to kind of go back and delete that attempt from your account in order to start again, because it'll register that like, hey, you're not eligible for this application type. So all you have to do is like delete that and then start over again. Okay. So are there questions we want to go through, Alika?
Yeah, there's a couple. So we have one asking, once you're on the My Submissions page, is there a link to get back to the main page with all the ATP application resources, or is the workaround to go back to the main CTC submit page?
So that's a good question. Sorry, I actually have it up on my screen. I'm just going to make sure what I'm telling you is correct before I actually, can we come back to that one, Alika?
Yeah, we can come back to that one.
But I figured that out yesterday, but I want to make sure I'm telling people the right thing.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, we have another question asking more so about like submitting the application. Did you want to hold off on those questions?
Uh,
I can go ahead and read them. Who is able to submit the application? Can it only be authorized representative from the applicant agency, or can a staff member from the agency who already has a submittable account be allowed to submit?
So
if
anyone can submit it. Anyone can submit it. Anyone can technically fill out the application. So where we make sure that the application is actually like, being submitted officially by the organization is the application signature page, which will need to be signed by someone who has the authority to sign for that organization. So it would be like the city manager or the public works director, whoever your agency's board or governing body like authorizes to sign on their behalf. So yeah, anyone, like any city staff can submit it. Any city staff can have an account and fill it out on behalf of the organization. Consultants can also fill it out on behalf of the organization. They just need to make sure that they have that signature page, just like a regular ATP application. Like they need to make sure that that signature page is complete and signed by someone authorized by the governing body.
Great. We have another question asking, if we're filling out applications for different organizations, will the notices of submitted and etc. go to the primary contact person's email or the account holder, or both?
It will go to the account holder, so I would suggest forwarding those emails to the primary contact person.
Okay, great. We got another question asking, will the applications be available on the CTC website as well as within Submittable, assuming applicants would create answers on a separate Word doc and then cut and paste them into an application?
So you mean like a Word version of the application that people can fill out? So we weren't planning to do that, but honestly, I'm happy to put that together and post it on our website for everyone. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea. So we can create those and we can include those as resources on the Submittable platform and on our website. The only, so I actually started doing this. I actually have it like halfway done. The only tricky thing is that we'll talk about later. The application is very, it like will change based on what your answers are to certain questions. So when you're looking at that Word version of the application, you'll just have to be careful and make sure you're not doing extra work, that like questions that don't pertain to you.
Okay, great. Let's see. We have another one asking, does the signatory require council commission adopted approval?
Do you mean like, sorry, I'm gonna read the question really fast.
Yeah.
So no, you don't need to have any, like you don't need a resolution or anything from your governing body. You just need to have someone who's like would normally be authorized to sign something like this. Like the signature page like talks about like who's authorized to sign, but it would be like anyone who would be basically anyone who's authorized to sign to say that like what's in the application is truthful and that yeah, that the application is from that organization.
Okay. We've gotten a couple comments of people agreeing that a Word version would be really helpful.
We can do that.
Someone asked, will you be creating an FAQ including questions and answers from this meeting?
Sure, we can do that. So yeah, we can do an FAQ with questions and answers from this meeting. And then later on, we'll also talk about like different ways that you can get support for your application. So yeah, we'll talk about that as well. So there's also like a place where you can ask questions about the submittable application.
Okay. Yeah, we've gotten a couple other questions, but I think we can probably hold off until you get a bit further into the presentation since you're going to cover them.
Okay, that sounds good. Oh, I have an answer. I have an answer for the question about
getting back to the resources.
Yeah, it might actually, I know Alicia is sharing her screen. It might be just easier for me to show people how to do that. I don't know if I can share my screen really fast. I'm really sorry, Alicia.
Sure. Let me stop sharing and then you should be allowed to share. Okay.
Thank you. All right, this will just take a second. 3, 2, share. Okay. So as you can see, I am on the portal, and then if you scroll to the very bottom and you click, there's like a little button that says follow. If you click that, it says following, and now I go to my account and I can go to the following tab, and then it'll have like the CCC one, and then it'll bring me back to the page. that's how you do that. And I will stop sharing my screen now.
We
Okay.
also, sorry, before you move on, just to kind of piggyback off what you said, we had someone include in the chat, I was able to go back to the links page with the resources by selecting back on the top left corner of the form. If you're in the submissions page, you can go to drafts and then click continue on in the application and then just select that back button and it'll take you back to the resources.
Thank you, person who wrote that. Very helpful. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so an overall kind of the format of the application is really similar to the PDF application in terms of what the flow is. So first there's the general application questions. So these are really asking you like, this is like asking for just general information about your agency and about your project, like the scope. And then we have part B, the narrative questions. So this is where do most of your writing. And then part C is the application attachments. So it's basically the same flow. We wanted to kind of keep it familiar with what you've done in the past. Maybe like once we kind of get used to a new online platform, we'll go back and we can change the format for next cycle. But for now, it's pretty much the same format. So I mentioned this before, but many of the application questions are branched, meaning if you select one response, it'll populate something. If you select a different response, it'll populate something else. And I have an example on the screen here. For the disadvantaged community question, like this is at the beginning of it, does this qualify as benefiting a disadvantaged community? If you select yes, it would populate all the DAC questions. Or disadvantaged community questions. And then if you select no, it comes up with a little message that says that you can move on to question 2. So it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, so just keep that in mind as you go through that, it might populate something different if you answer it in a certain way. And then questions with a red asterisk are required. So just make sure you fill those out before you submit the application, and it'll tell you when you go to submit whether you need to go back and you need to fill something out that's required. Next slide, please. Okay, so I know a lot of people have asked about this. So at the very top of an application, like once the application comes, once it comes up on your screen, there is a little link that says Manage Collaborators, and it will bring you to a little screen where you can type in email addresses of people that you want to collaborate with. So collaborators, so people you're collaborating with can edit and save the application, but they cannot submit it. So they won't have, like at the bottom of the application, they won't have the little button that says submit. So the person who kind of initiated the application has to be the person to submit it. And you have to communicate outside of the platform. So it is possible for you to save over each other's work if you're working on something simultaneously. So make sure, and there's not really a way to talk to people inside the platform. So make sure you're talking to each other outside of the platform to make sure you're not saving over each other's work. And we'll remind you of that a couple times, but yeah, please do not kind of make this mistake of saving over each other's work because you're not communicating about what you're changing. Next slide, please. Okay, so the application form, well, it auto saves periodically. Honestly, when I've been playing around with it, it basically auto saves, all the time. But I don't always trust that, so I just want to remind you all to please try to save your progress regularly, just in case that autosave doesn't work for some reason. The Save Drafts button is at the bottom of the application, so you'll have to scroll down a bit to get to it. So you press that Save Drafts, and someone had asked in the Q&A whether you have to complete the application form in one sitting. No, you don't. So it'll save automatically as you go on, but again, recommend that you also save manually. So you'll be able to revisit the application as many times as you need to complete it. And a little bit later on, we'll talk through like where you go to kind of access your applications that are in progress. Next slide, please.
We got a couple questions about collaborating. Did you want to address those before we move on?
We can talk about those.
So we have one asking, do collaborators need an account?
Yes, collaborators will have to create an account, and they'll have like their own. They'll get an email that says you've been invited to collaborate on this application, and then they'll have to accept the invitation to collaborate, and then they'll have to create an account. And like we'll go over later, like where they'll be able to access the application they're collaborating on.
And then we have another one asking, so I won't be notified if a collaborator makes changes to the application?
No, that's why you need to communicate outside of the platform.
And then another question asking, so it's best that collaborators are not in the application at the same time since it auto saves.
Yes.
Okay. Another question asking, can you save more than one draft application if you're collaborating?
Yes.
And then a follow-up question, can I save multiple applications?
Sorry, do you mean more than one version? If they mean more than one version of the same application, then no, it'll be the same. It's one. If it's the same application that you're collaborating on, you'll only be able to save one draft.
Okay. But if it's multiple, other applications, they can save them at once.
Yes.
And then this kind of piggybacks off the last question. Can I save multiple applications at once? So we addressed that one. Can we print the application out while working on a draft?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you should just be able to press like print and it'll print it out. But I'm not sure. That's a good question. Sorry. So in terms of like downloading a PDF while you're working on it and printing that out, I don't think you can do that. You can download the final version, but I will actually have to go back and check and see if there's a way to kind of download a PDF and print it as you're working on it. So that's something we can kind of, whenever we post these slides, we can go back and we can have answers to questions like that.
Okay, I'll make note of the question too, so we don't forget. We have a couple comments on the Word doc. We have David noting, agreed about the Word version. It would allow multiple people to collaborate within an office on an application and then keep submissions centralized instead of needing to create multiple accounts to work on multiple applications if working as a team. We have another one from Teresa stating, when you create the Word document of the applications, can you please be sure to allow all the branched questions as well, so we don't miss anything. I agree that these apps are very involved and require input from many on a team, so we want to be sure that we're covering all questions before submitting. And then we have one person commenting, maybe create a fake project and let people test it out and play with the app. So we do have a test version available. I don't know, Beverly, if you want to talk more about that.
Yeah, that's we do have a test version available that I took offline when the main versions went public, but I'm happy to re-add that to the website so people can play around with it. That's a good idea. So yeah, we can put that back up.
Okay. Okay, we have another comment stating, just so you're aware, many agencies work on a draft application offline and then just upload the final information into portals. Please be sure to include the Word doc version so agencies can work collaboratively offline and then just have one person upload the final version.
Yep, we're going to do the Word version. Thank you.
And then another comment or question asking, so to clarify, to work on multiple applications at once, you need to have collaborators, and that's the only way to save multiple applications.
So, to save multiple applications of the same type, so if you have, two small infrastructure applications that you're working on, then either you would need to have a collaborator who initiates it, or you could use a different email address for your account. Once you submit an application, you'll be able to start a new one. But yes, if you want to work on them simultaneously, either you'll need a collaborator or you'll need to use a different email address to register with a different account.
And then we have one comment. You can print a PDF on a Mac to print out the application in progress. There are some funky mistakes on the very first page. So thank you for that comment. We have another one from Naila from Caltrans. She's asking, for Caltrans, there will be multiple districts submitting applications. Better approach would be to have each district have their own application account where they individually submit applications, or headquarters submits all the applications using one account.
That's really up to Caltrans to decide what's easiest for them. I'm not really sure how it's worked in the past for Caltrans, but yeah, I think that would be an internal decision. And obviously, if you guys want to talk to us more about the logistics of that and how you would manage that, then we're happy to chat with you more to try to help you figure out what would be the best way. I can't tell you right now what's best for you, but if you want to chat offline and we can discuss your needs a little bit more, and we can help you figure it out.
We have another question asking, does a local agency need to start the application, or may a collaborator start it?
So yeah, anyone, if you're using a consultant, they can start the application and they can have the local agency be the collaborator. Yeah, it's really anyone can start it. It doesn't matter on our end. Really as long as, we have the signature page with someone authorized to sign, and then we have the contacts with, we have a primary and secondary contact, and at least one of those people needs to be from the local agency, then, yeah, that's fine.
Let's see, another question, is there a way to export from Submittable for review to a Word or PDF?
So that's similar to the question that we had before. So we're going to look into that and see the best way of doing that. And we'll kind of post an answer with these slides.
We got one comment stating, I've tried to print a copy of the application by right-clicking print and it works. So thank you for that feedback. Will submittals on the regional level be processed through this application portal as well? For example, for the SCAG round of funding?
So we've opened up that that option to the regions, but I don't think any of the regions have actually decided yet whether or not to use it. It's an option for them, but the best thing to do for that is to kind of keep an eye on what happens with the regional guidelines and whether they decide to use Submittable for their regional, if they have a supplemental call or a supplemental application, whether they decide to use Submittable for that. It's completely up to them whether or not they use it.
Let's see. I think we've kind of answered this already, but someone just sent in a question asking, can you work on multiple applications simultaneously if there are different application types?
Yes.
Are you able to skip around the application, or is the functionality of Submittable such that we won't be able to complete the later questions without completing the first parts? Assuming this could be tricky considering the branching questions, but it would be inconvenient if we're only able to complete the application sequentially.
So you can skip around as much as you want. So there's not much from section to section. Like, it's divided into sections and subsections. So there's not much that branches from one subsection to another subsection. Generally, I know there's a couple examples where it does branch, but like, for example, you could skip all of the beginning, like part A stuff, all of that general stuff, and go to the narrative questions like automatically and start filling that out. And like the disadvantaged community question doesn't link to the need question, so you could do those, out of order. You could do them in whatever order you want. So yeah, there's I would say especially in part A, the different subsections. So there's like a subsection on like applicant information. Those, like, within those subsections, they heavily, there's a lot of branching within one subsection, but again, like, it's pretty separate from what's happening in the rest of the application. So yeah, you can skip around. Like, one example I can think of where it's linked from different parts of the application is if you have a Safe Routes to School project, if you select in like the project type that it's a Safe Routes to School project, one additional thing will pop up later on in the application and the narrative portion, asking you to fill in a table about like that shows like the number of schools. Little things like that will pop up. I don't think it would really, because like it's a required, like that example, it's a required question. Even if you like skipped ahead and you didn't fill it out and then later on and went back and it popped up, you would kind of figure out, because it's required, that you need to fill it out. So I don't think it'll be too hard for people to skip around the application, as in whatever order they want to go in.
Great. And then one final comment, and then I'll let you continue with your presentation. A tip for people who need multiple accounts, you can add using the plus feature after your email to make a new account per application. For example, you have one planner application, and then they listed like 2 different email addresses, etc. Any communication over email will still will be directed to your main email. So thank you for that tip.
That's a really good tip. Yeah, we might include that on the little frequently asked questions thing that people requested.
Yep. I'll make note of that one as well. And with that, I think we can take a pause on the questions.
Thanks for going through those, Alika. All right, so, oh, okay. So in terms of how the questions are laid out, there are word count limits. Under each question, you can see a little arrow where it says limit is 900 words. All of these match what was in the PDF application, unless we change them during the workshops. There are a couple examples of that. And then under some questions, there's kind of some text that's kind of in gray that tells you more about what you should be writing there. And this kind of, again, mimics what was in the PDF application. However, I just want to remind people that, you know, address the things that are on this, like in this question, address these things, but also make sure you're referring back to the scoring rubrics as you're filling out your application. And it should be really easy for you to find the scoring rubrics because they're all linked from the same page as the applications. But it's just another reminder to please use the scoring rubrics because it'll help you as you're developing your responses. And then again, there's links to helpful resources and templates throughout the application. So you can see in this example, in the little gold box where that text is at the end, there is a link to the Healthy Places Index. So we tried to link things like that as much as we could throughout the application so they're easily accessible by everyone. Next slide, please. And then it's pretty self-explanatory, but once you're done, there is a submit button. And you won't be able to submit until you have finished all of the required questions. So it'll tell you that you need to go back and fill out whatever questions are required before you can submit. And next slide, please. Any other questions, Alika, for now?
We have one regarding the word count. Someone's asking, can you describe how the word count works? Does it show what's remaining as you type? And does it cut you off when you've reached your limit?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if it shows you what's remaining. But yeah, it won't let you like type anymore if you've reached the limit. But that's we'll go back and we'll check and see if it shows what's remaining, and then we'll add that to kind of our Q&A document that we post.
That's it on the questions.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so managing submissions, we've had a lot of questions about this already. So next slide, please. Okay, so if you go to, in your account, if you go to the sitemap and then you click on My Submissions, it brings up this little thing that has 4 different tabs. So it has My Submissions, which is things that you've already submitted. It'll have a little status over here that says received once it's been like submitted and received by the CTC and Caltrans. There's also there's like another little tab that says drafts, and I'll go through all these in more detail in a second. And there's one that says collaborations, and there's one that says external submissions. So we're not actually going to go through external submissions because it's not really relevant to us. But in case you're wondering, like what external submissions is that it's if you are, in your overall submittable account, if you're tracking like other grant programs, like not our programs, like something else, and they have like a different application, like a different application platform, it's a place where you can track those as well, like within Submittable, if you're as an organization trying to keep everything organized into like one place. Not relevant to us, but in case you want to use that feature, you can. But just wanted to keep everyone kind of in the loop on that. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so when you if you open the My Submissions tab, there's a list of applications that have been submitted with the status. If you click on the application name, it brings you to a new screen and you have an option to download a PDF copy of your submitted application. There's also an option that says edit. So you could actually technically edit your application. So what it'll do with that is if you submit your application before the deadline, and then you figure out that you made a mistake or there's something you want to add, it will send, if you go to this tab, it'll send us a request to allow you to go in and edit. So if you submit it before the application deadline, we would allow you to go back and edit and add whatever you need to add. Yeah, so there's an option to do that. It's also possible that we may use that feature after applications are submitted. So we're going to, obviously go through and review everything. It's possible that we would ask you to go back and edit something after it's submitted. I don't really know of any examples right now that I can think of, but it's possible that we would send you a request to go in and edit something after it's been submitted. So that's kind of what the edit is. There's also a messages tab, so you can technically send us a message about your application after it's been submitted. So you can feel free to use that. It'll kind of send us a message if you have a question. Maybe, like, just as an example, maybe you're not sure, like maybe you thought maybe you did something wrong and you are wondering about it. You could send us a message and ask, like, do you think I need to go back and edit this? And then the Forms tab is really just if we have any other forms that you need to fill out, but there won't be anything in that tab for this. And then Notes are kind of notes for yourself. And then Awards and Payments, again, that's more of like an internal feature that you can use. When we do our awards, we'll be using, if your project is awarded, we'll be using the normal like CTC and Caltrans processes. So you wouldn't use that feature for a ATP application. Okay. Oh, and there's also an option here where you can withdraw your application. And I know most people won't want to withdraw their application, but there have been times when someone submits an application and then they find out that they're awarded the funding through a different program and they don't need to have that application here anymore. So there is an option that you can choose to withdraw your application after it's been submitted. Every cycle we get like 1 or 2 emails with someone asking if they can withdraw their application because they were awarded a different source of funding. Okay, so next slide, please. So there's the Drafts tab. So this is where, while you're working on your application, where your drafts will be. And so you just press continue in order to go back to where you kind of left off on your application. There's also a delete button, but don't worry, if you press delete, it will ask you if you're really sure you want to delete it. So there's like so hopefully no one accidentally deletes their draft, because there is kind of a 2-step thing where you have to be really sure that you want to delete it. And this is also, sorry, for the delete option, if you go through the that screening form that I showed you earlier, that's making sure that you're filling out the right application. So if you do that and it tells you like, hey, you're using the wrong application, like go check and see which one you're supposed to use. And then you check and see, and then you realize that, hey, like I filled out the form wrong and I am using the right application. So before you can proceed with that form again, you'll need to delete your first like attempt at it. So like that's when you would like press delete, because if one of these 2 on the screen had been one where I was using the wrong application and I filled out that form and it told me like you're using the wrong application, if I press continue, it'll bring me back to that screen that says, hey, you need to check the guidelines. So that's one instance where you would have to kind of delete a draft. And then go to the next slide, and then after that slide, we'll see if there's any other questions. So if others have invited you to collaborate on an application, that's what will show up in your collaborations tab. So if you've invited other people to collaborate with you, then you won't see these here, but if you have been invited to an application to collaborate, then you'll see kind of this list of applications to collaborate on. And then again, you would just press continue to kind of work on the application. And as a reminder, please, please, please make sure you're communicating with all the collaborators to make sure you're not kind of like working over each other in the application. And you'll see in the collaborations tab, there isn't an option, thankfully, to delete the application. So if you do invite kind of external collaborators, they won't be able to delete your application. Okay. I think we can pause for questions there.
Okay. So we have one question asking how, once submitted, can we retrieve the application if we want to make edits or changes to it?
Yeah, so we kind of discussed this a couple slides back. Sorry, Alicia, can you go back to, there's the slide that says my submissions, I think. This one. One forward. Thank you. Sorry for having you skip around. So yes, once you submit it, you can go back and make edits, but you have to make an edit request to us, which obviously if it's before the application deadline, we will allow you to go back and edit your application. So you would go to that little button that says edit, and it'll come up with some prompts, and then it will send us a request for you, like to ask if you can edit, and then we'll let you go back in and we'll let you edit your application. And then if you want to save your application that you've submitted, just press download and you'll be able to save like a PDF of the entire application.
Okay, great. Another question asking, will a confirmation of submittal be sent after the application is submitted?
Yep, you'll get an email confirmation, and then you'll also see like so you'll get that email confirmation, and then you'll also see in your little, like this little portal that it'll say like received by us. So you'll have like kind of two different places where you can see that it's been received.
Someone is asking, can you withdraw your application, edit it, and then resubmit it so we don't have to wait for you to allow edits?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it would like save the current draft that you have going, so you may have to start over. We'll look into that and we'll include that as like as part of the FAQs.
Okay. We have another question asking for collaboration. Is there a way to see who has accepted the invitation and now has access to collaborate?
There is, like using the managed collaborations, you'll be able to see who has accepted. We can include like a little screenshot of that on like on the FAQ document that we put out.
Okay, great. Another question asking, if you download the application, does it download the attachments as well?
We'll put that on our list as well. There is a way to download them, but I'm not sure if it's downloading, if it's part of that PDF, it's downloading those as well. So we'll check into that.
Okay. Someone's looking for clarification. Only one type of application can be attached per a person's email address.
So you can, per email address, you can do as many application types as possible. You just can't do two of the same.
Okay. Can collaborators add collaborators?
No.
Okay. How do you add or attach letters of support to the application?
So there's attachment fields throughout the application that tell you like what you need to attach there. So there's an attachment field that says letters of support, and you attach the letters of support in that attachment field.
Okay. I feel like we'll address this in the FAQs, but there seems to be some confusion. So can you just create two different accounts with different emails to deal with multiple applications in the same category?
Yes.
We have someone asking, can more than one user work on the application at the same time? And so this was an earlier question, and we talked about the collaboration feature. Let's see. As an alternative to collaboration, can you share the login with your team? Does it check that only one login can be active at one time?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to share your login internally with people on your team, that's fine. I don't think it will check to make sure that there's other people like not logged in though. But if that's easier for you, like to all use the same account, yeah, that's fine.
I think you'd still have to be careful not to save over each other.
Yeah.
Okay, we got another question asking if a Caltrans reviewer notices that an agency accidentally applied leveraging to a small infrastructure or NI app that doesn't get points for leveraging, can we ask to revise that portion of the application?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Alika?
Yeah. If a Caltrans reviewer notices that an agency accidentally applied leveraging to a small infrastructure or NI application that doesn't get points for leveraging, could we ask to revise that portion of the application?
So if you're filling out a non-infrastructure or a small application or any other application that doesn't ask for leveraging, there's no leveraging question in the application. It's like completely removed. So the application is only asking you like basically for the information that you need to include. Sorry, someone asked earlier about the word counts and whether it's like counting the words that you fill out like based in the word count. So yes, it does. So if the word count is like 300 words and you've done 10 words so far, it shows up on the bottom saying like 10 out of 300. So it shows you like your progress so far, not how many you have left, but how many you've like done towards the limit.
Great. Okay, I think we're all caught up on questions.
Oh, perfect.
We have someone who followed up saying it says characters, not words. And are those with spaces?
So I see where it says characters. Some of them are characters and some of them are words. If it says characters, then it's characters including spaces. And if it's words, then it's words. And I think the words don't include spaces. For the most part, it's words, but some of them are characters.
That's all we have.
Okay, so in terms of support for applicants, next slide, please. So this Submittable has a help center, so for submitters. So there's a lot of articles and videos and kind of step-by-step guides on various topics. So for those, like you can go to that URL. It's also like on their website. There's like little help buttons everywhere. So if you need help, it'll take you to this. There's also an email address to send technical support questions. So this should be your first stop for anything like technical related to the application. So if you're having a technical problem with the application, this should be your first stop. So like, if you want to ask how you collaborate on an application, like you can't figure it out, there's a whole section on there on this website that explains how to collaborate and how it all works. If you're getting like some sort of weird error message, like this is also where you should come look first and try emailing them first. Mainly because a lot of the technical questions, I mean, you could try emailing us, but we may direct you back to Submittable with those questions. So this is kind of your first stop for any technical questions, and then go to the next slide, please. If you have questions about application content, then you should come to us. So if you have a question about something like what a question means or like what you should be attaching in a certain attachment field, then you can either come to us or Caltrans, the Caltrans team. And we work we work in really close collaboration with our partners at Caltrans. So if you're not sure who the appropriate person is to ask your question, just, you can email us, and all of our email addresses are at the end of this presentation. But yeah, you can email us and we'll make sure it gets to the right person. We talk to each other all the time. But just keep in mind that because the call for projects is open, we cannot provide advice on developing your application, on your narrative. All of that work, we kind of, we had our virtual site visits and our branch workshops where we did that. So we cannot do that anymore. However, we know every cycle, we know there's questions that are going to come up. So questions like, how do I download my disadvantaged community data? There actually are links throughout the application that tell you like where you can get this data. But I'm sure like some people might not be able to find those. People always have questions. So questions like that, you can email us and we can point you in the right direction. Or like, what does this field mean? Like, what is this field asking for in the application? I'm not sure like what to put here. We can answer questions like that. Questions that we can't answer are things like, what should I say about displacement in my application? Or how can I strengthen my narrative on project need? So if you send us questions like that, we will direct you to some other resources. Like for displacement, we'll direct you towards we have a new appendix on anti-displacement resources. We'll also direct you to things like our scoring rubrics. So you can ask them, you can ask questions like that, but we'll very likely send you a response that say like, hey, check like this resource for more guidance on this, because We need to keep this kind of fair for everyone who's applying. So we can't really answer questions on how to like make your application better. Okay, so I'll pause and see if there are any questions.
We got a couple in. First one asking, when will CTC release the call for projects?
The call for projects went out on Friday. The call for projects is open. So all of the applications are kind of ready to be filled out, and they're all available online and live.
Another question asking, jumping back to the word count, can the words typed be more than the word count and then the final edit to hit the limit? So I think they're asking, can you exceed the word count and then kind of refine it to fit into that word count requirement?
I'm not sure. We'll go back and we can test that, and we'll post it with our other questions that people had.
And then another question asking, how soon do you think the Word versions of the application will be posted?
Well, I'll work on them this afternoon, and then they'll have to go through remediation. So I would say by next week we can get them up.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I'm seeing.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so next slide, please. All right, so just some general reminders and tips from the things we've discussed today. And also we have, after this first slide, we have the surprise slide from Alika that she's gonna go over. Okay, so next slide, please. All right, some general reminders: save your progress, communicate with anyone you're collaborating on in the application. If you need technical support, please go to the Submittable Help Center first. So if there's a technical problem, that's your first place to look. And then if you have a technical question about the application content, please come to us. And if you can't find your answer in the technical support section and maybe use email Submittable and like you still can't figure it out, you can always email us as well. We're here to help, but keep in mind that we have hundreds of applicants, so using that technical support through Submittable is your best bet to getting your answer to your technical question, your technology question sooner than coming to us. All right, and then in case we have a few best practices for your application, or a few tips for your application to make it as strong as possible. Kind of our last technical support opportunity for everyone before you put together your application. So I'll hand things over to Alika to go over some kind of tips for your application.
Thanks, Beverly. Okay, application tips. So these are all tips that we recommend to all of our applicants as they're writing their applications or as they're, kind of putting things together and before you submit. So make sure that you are using the scoring rubrics. These provide very detailed and specific guidance on what you should be responding to in your narrative questions. And these are exactly what the evaluators use as they are scoring your application. So these are very helpful tools. Make sure that you are using these as you write the apps. Look at the successful applications for ideas. We have all of these cycle 5 and cycle 6 successful applications linked on the CTC's ATP website. They're under their respective cycle tabs. Take a look at those. There's a variety of projects. If you find one that is that sounds similar to what you were proposing, you are welcome to look at those, look at their attachments, review their narrative responses, and mirror that in the application that you are looking to submit. Evaluators probably won't be familiar with your community, so tell your story. I would say this is the most important feedback that we tend to provide to all of our applicants, whether it's through the virtual site visits or through application debriefs. Make sure that you are sharing your community story. It's important to keep that in mind and not assume that the evaluators will know all of the needs and safety concerns that are taking place in your community. Keep your attachments organized. That's always very helpful. So if you are creating a table of contents, we've seen some applicants do that. That can be helpful. Attachments should be complementing your narrative and not replace it. So please do not rely on staff or evaluators to look at your attachments and fully grasp whatever it is that you are trying to get across with that attachment. Make sure that you are describing what it is that you're attaching, how it's relevant to your project. You can provide more than one map in map attachment fields, but they need to be combined as one file. So if you feel that your map is a bit crowded because you are showing, the project area, transit routes, key destinations, missing gaps, all of that, you can attach those under one file, but have multiple pages of maps and have each one focus on a different thing that you are trying to convey. It doesn't all need to be in one map. And the final tip that we always provide to our applicants is to try all of the disadvantaged community identifiers. Try all of them out and see what will get you the most amount of points on severity and location. That is just our general recommendation for that question. So I will pause here. It looks like someone was asking for us to include the link to the call for projects. So I've already included the link to the adoption of the guidelines. So I'll make sure to include a link to the Submittable webpage as well in the chat for you all. It's also on slide 4, I believe, of the PowerPoint presentation, and this will be posted on our website as well, along with the recording. So I'll make sure that it's included in the chat for you all as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so we can pause here for any other questions that you all may have. And if it's easier for you to raise your hand, please feel free to do so. You don't have to type it in through the Q&A.
So I tested it out while you were presenting your slide, and someone else did as well. So if you go over the word limit, it turns like red to show that you're over, but it still lets you type, and then you won't be able to submit your application until you cut down the words to the word limit. But yeah, you can go over and then edit down.
Perfect. And thank you to Deborah for also testing that out.
Yes, thank you.
We have a question asking, can you save an answer if it's over the word limit?
Hold on, I'll test that really fast. I have the application open. Yes, you can save it.
Okay, great. We have someone asking, where can I find other successful applications? I'll link to those in the chat, but those are on the CTC's ATP website. So once you're on that that web page, you'll be able to scroll down and you'll see there's a separate tab for cycles 5 and 6. And once you scroll about partway down through each of those tabs, you'll see a hyperlink to the successful applications. And then a PDF spreadsheet will populate, and you'll see the application ID along with the project name, excuse me, and you'll be able to click on that project if that's the one that you want to look at. I would recommend, if you click on a project that you are hoping to look at the application for, give it a couple minutes. Remember that these are the PDF applications, so they are very large. So it will take a few minutes for it to open up. Another question asking, can we upload an attachment and then later remove it and reattach it to a different one before we submit?
Yeah, so if you upload something and then you realize it's the wrong attachment, or you want to attach an updated attachment, there's a little trash can next to, like, once it's uploaded, there's a little trash can next to it that you can click on to remove it and then add a different attachment.
Another question asking, would you mind navigating to the slide at the end of this presentation that lists your emails while you're going through questions? Yes, absolutely. Alicia, would you? Thank you.
Any other questions?
Give it another minute. I'm not seeing anything new come in. Oh, we have a hand raised. Jerry, did you want to come off mute?
Sorry, I accidentally raised hand.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it looks like someone's saying that they can't click on attachments for cycle 6. So once you open a PDF application, there's a prompt at the very top of the application in yellow, asking if you want to, it's like the options menu, and it'll ask you if you want to trust the document one time only or indefinitely. So you make sure that you select trust the document one time. And once you do, then the application will become dynamic and you'll be able to open up the applications. Another option, I think you can do this, but it won't be in order of by question, is there's a toolbar on the PDF on the left-hand side. And if you click on that paperclip, it has all of the attachments listed. Someone is asking, will there be guideline workshops or office hours? So these have already taken place. We started the guidelines workshops August of last year. And we started our engagement doing virtual site visits, in-person site visits, and branch workshops in September and October of last year, and we ended in, at the end of May, or excuse me, at the end of February, going up until March, mid-March. So once we adopt the guidelines, we will not be able to provide any sort of project-specific assistance. But we do have all of the workshop materials posted on our website. With the cycle 7 scoring rubrics on, someone's noting the cycle 7 scoring rubrics on the CTC website aren't active. Will these become active?
They should be active. I just checked. I know checking on my, like, when I'm connected to our network, it's not always reliable, but I just checked on a different device and they're all active.
Yep, I'm showing they are as well.
I'm not sure why you're having problems, but if you continue having problems, you can email us and we can email you copies of them.
And I'm showing that they are linked. So I'm not seeing that any of them are broken links. So you should be able to access all of them.
They're not active on the Caltrans webpage, but I mean, they're on the CTC website, and I'm sure they'll be up on the Caltrans website soon. You can imagine, like, getting everything up. It's a lot of work for us in Caltrans, mainly because everything has to be remediated for like ADA accessibility. So there's always a slight delay getting everything up. So I'm sure they'll be up on the Caltrans website soon as well. They're currently posted on our website and they're on the Submittable, like, application platform as well.
So it looks like for some of the cycle 6 successful applications, let me just confirm this, that there's an issue with the City of LA projects. Oh, so you'll see for example, one of the City of LA projects, you'll see the application ID 7, Los Angeles City of 4. You'll see that there's multiple lines for that project. And the reason we had to do that is because some of the cycle 6 applications were so large that the hyperlink was too big for us to link within this as one. So we had to break it up. So you'll see that the first link is the Normandy Beautiful, and that's the project title. And then all of the attachments that were incredibly large, we had to break out separately. So that's why you'll see those broken out individually as opposed to all bundled in within the same application. Someone's asking, how do we know the implementing agency's low code?
So it's a drop-down list where you can search for your agency. If you can't find it, then you just, there's directions on the bottom that say not listed. And so you would select that.
Another question asking, is it possible to sign in on multiple devices at the same time with one login?
Yes, it is.
Let's see. There's one question that just came in. So we have one question that says the links for the guidelines on the CTC website says draft. Will there be a final version of these posted? Beverly kind of went over this already. So I included a link earlier in the chat to the 2025 guidelines adoption book item. Our web team is still busy posting from the meeting that just ended last week. So they are working to get those final adopted guidelines posted on our website. But in the meantime, if you want to see what was proposed and what was adopted at the meeting, it is included in that chat that I sent out at 9:40 this morning. How should we select which of our possible 4 to 5 folks to contact with questions?
Like from the contacts on the screen? Or
I'm not sure. It says our possible 4 to 5 folks.
yeah, Rochelle, could you clarify? Okay, so I would say if you want to contact one of us from commission contacts, you can honestly contact all of us or all three of us or one of us or two of us. We literally talk to each other all day long. So we'll make sure that the question gets to whoever can best respond to it. So you can pick any of us. For Caltrans, I would recommend picking the appropriate contact for your district. So these are the Caltrans headquarters contacts for each district. And so you can see by their names, there's whichever Caltrans districts they cover. So Desiree covers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cirillo covers 6, 9, 10, and 11. And then Elijah covers 7, 8, and 12. So I would recommend reaching out to them. And if your question is related to a non-infrastructure project or a combination infrastructure, non-infrastructure project or a planned project, I would recommend also including Allie in your question, since she is our non-infrastructure and plan expert, or Caltrans' expert. I don't want to claim ownership of Allie, even though I love Allie. So. But honestly, I feel like you could randomly select anyone from the screen and email them a question. We'll make sure it gets to the right person. We all work really collaboratively together.
We'll give it like another minute or two to see if any other questions come up. Thank you, Rochelle, for participating. Thank you, Naila.
All right, I think that's it.
Yep.
We'll see. We'll hang around for like one more minute, see if any other questions pop up. But otherwise, people, you're welcome to log off. So thanks everyone for joining us today.